Another round of applause for Dave Cotter, please. So I'm very excited to kick off our next fireside chat discussion with two people that should be familiar to everyone in the room. Moderating this next fireside chat is Paul Bingham. He is the NICE Community Coordinated Council co-chair, Vice President and Dean of Information Technology at Western Governors University, and has an illustrious career serving our country in the United States FBI. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Elizabeth Kolmstetter and Mr. Paul Bingham.
Hey, thanks. Thank you.
That one's yours.
All right, thank you.
And let's open this now so
Okay.
we don't have a
Problem later. Thank you, you're the best.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Elizabeth Kolmstetter. Dr. Kolmstetter, there's going to be plenty more opportunities for that by the time I'm done here. Here we go, Elizabeth. Dr. Kolmstetter is an industrial and organizational psychologist and has been a member of the federal government's Senior Executive Service for 19 years. She has 30 years, you started when you were 5, I think.
Thank you.
She has 30 years of public service at agencies including NASA, USAID, the CIA, the FBI, ODNI, TSA, and the National Skills Standards Boards / Department of Labor. In addition, Dr. Kolmstetter was selected to serve on special assignment in 2015 to the Executive Office of the President, as a senior policy advisor in the Office of Performance and Personnel Management at OMB. Most remarkably, she received the 2022 Meritorious Presidential Rank Award. That's worthy of a round of applause. As well as numerous other awards, including the National Intelligence Superior Service Medal, the NASA Outstanding Leadership Medal, the M. Scott Myers Award for Best Applied Research, and she is a fellow of SIOP. She received her PhD and MS in Industrial and Organizational Psychology from Virginia Tech, and there you go, and her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Computer Science from Hollins University. She and her husband, Michael, are the proud parents of twins Miles and Nicole, now 23 years old.
Yes.
Hard to believe for you, I bet.
Yes, it is.
First of all, Elizabeth, thank you for your 30 years of public service during which you've pioneered innovative talent management across 8 big-name federal agencies that we just mentioned, most recently transforming from, wait for it, outer space, NASA, to cyberspace, where you are the first ever Chief People Officer at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. That is remarkable.
How fun. Yeah.
So the title of this segment is Rethinking Government Hiring. I think if you had a theme song, Elizabeth, I think that's what the title of it would be.
All right.
Rethinking Government Hiring.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea? I know you and I had an opportunity to speak before at these, before we jump into CISA, these other agencies. Can you give us a little sense of what that journey looked like, rethinking government hiring?
Oh, absolutely. And it is a pleasure to be with you here, Paul, and to be part of this wonderful, nice conference. It has been amazing to reconnect with the cybersecurity, infrastructure security community, because it's been some time since I was in the Director of National Intelligence and working on CNCI and Initiative 8, which was all about educating a workforce and creating a pipeline. So it's great to be here 15 years later and back in it. So I really do believe hiring is the most important decision an organization is going to make, because it is all about, are we getting the right talent, the right people with the skills, bringing them in and creating capability to get the job done. So hiring is critical. So I think as an IO psychologist, I always got into validating selection systems and thinking about how do we find the right people? How do we get the right fit? So that has been part of my entire career as I moved to different agencies, looking at what are the hiring systems. And of course, as technology has really, when I started in this, we gave paper and pencil tests. You know, many of you in academia remember paper and pencil tests, and everybody took the test before they could get to the interview stage. But we've really advanced, and so has the field of assessment. And of course, with certifications now and proving proficiency levels and demonstrating skills, I mean, that is really key to getting the right people in the job. So hiring is really important. I have been just absolutely privileged to be part of these large scale hiring systems in the government. So obviously I started at the FBI and we reimagined the special agent selection system, which I understand you're a result of my work.
I'm the product of that selection system. I don't know if that was a good product or a bad product.
It's a success story. Are you kidding me? No, so we did actually have to revamp the SA selection system because in the 90s we were really trying to diversify special agents and not just look for lawyers and accountants and really diversity. And we moved into computer science skills at that time. So here we are again, like that was a good thing to do back in the 90s and forward. So really rethinking what do we need and building that into the hiring system. For the special agents, a lot of things that need to be reformed around hiring is it's not a one size fits all. And I think a lot of times the government tries to standardize everything and make it fit, and then it doesn't fit, and then people get really frustrated because they want to do something different to assess talent, but they're kind of boxed in. The special agent system is a really great model that I think we should be using more in government. We hired cohorts, and I heard about this yesterday from some speakers. We hired agents as a group to come in, and we would do it through a very formal selection process. Hiring managers didn't pick their next agent for the team. We did it for the organization. What skills, what mix do we need? And we also treated the training, which of course for agents is very formalized, but the training is part of your selection system too, because then you can put people into the job type aspects of what they're going to have to be doing, see how they do. Is this a good fit? And you got to call people out early. If it's not a good fit and you find that in training, don't keep them. Use that as part of your selection system. Same thing with onboarding programs. They're so important because that's a time to evaluate for the applicant, but also for us as an organization if the fit is there. So I think thinking of it more systemically as hiring is an action, but it's a process too to make sure we get the right people in the right job. So I think the FBI really has a great hiring program because they do hire it for the agency. And that's one of my big things is hiring is not the end outcome we want. We're building capacity for the organization. That's the end goal. It's about capacity building. So bringing the right skills in, the diverse mix of talent, the different types of people that we need to go after our mission. So think about it that way. And hiring is a mechanism, and it has to be done fairly, and it has to be done job-related measures. But it's also about, again, this fit, and how are we doing to assess if this is the right people for what we need. So that's really what I really think in terms of the foundational reform in government is using all of the things available to us. Referrals. It's another big thing. People know a lot of people who could be great at our jobs, but we make them go through this very bland USA jobs hiring, and that's kind of a whole nother thing, and just in the government trying to figure out how to get into government jobs. But it's sort of a turnoff. But if you know somebody in the government and you talk to that person, and they get you excited about coming and being public servant, then there should be a track for people to come in and get those opportunities. So we'll talk about some of the methods, but again, capacity building is really what hiring is about, and getting the right fit and getting the right diverse mix of people, not just what we've always had or the ones that have worked in the past, but thinking really differently about what we need and where are we going with our workforce.
That's fantastic. And I think you found a really wonderful way of solving for the organizational need, what you just mentioned, but also recognizing that people are individuals.
Yes.
Their skill sets are individualized, and creating that mechanism that solves for the organization, but treats people as individuals and brings them in for their individual contributions.
Yes.
Which I think leads us into some of the great work that you're doing at CISA right now. So let's jump right into that. You're strengthening a people-first culture at CISA. With your focus on cyber defense, a lot of people think that cyber or technical skills would be your focus, but it's people first. So can you please share your vision of why people first is of such vital importance for you and CISA?
Yeah, and how to say this in a nutshell. And this is what really attracted me to CISA, is the Director Jen Easterly's vision for people first as her priority in our culture. Because if we don't really engage people and bring out their best talent every day toward our mission, how are we going to get it done? We can have the best technology, we can have the best processes, but if we don't have the people engaged and bring in their ideas and their skills to the work, we're not going to get this done. So that has to be first and foremost. And yes, we have to have good technology and good processes and good policy, but the people matter. People get our mission done, period. And so really thinking about that, though, is critical, because I think a lot of times when we talk about culture, that's a very squishy subject, and it's hard to measure and it's hard to define, but it's a felt experience. You talk to any employee in an organization and they'll tell you what it's like to work there, how things really get done around here. Ooh, what was that? I already blew the mic. Oh dear, I think it's okay. So I think that when you talk about culture, it has to be done with intention, and that's what our director thought about when she hired a chief people officer. It's like, I don't want to leave this to chance and put a bunch of good training and good things out there and just hope it all works. We got to do this with...
All right.
All right, now you're the special agent. I don't know why you're not like doing something about that.
Retired special agent. But I am starting to look at some of you a little more carefully here.
Those are exclamation points on my points, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so I think that thinking about culture with intention, how do we make sure that we have the right building blocks? We're doing the right things to bring out the best in our people every day, and not just say a bunch of things or do some nice posters with a bunch of core values and stick it on the wall and hope it happens. So this is where we intentionally build programs from the time we're recruiting and hiring people to onboarding to training, development, engaging, putting the right people in leadership programs, and then continuously talking about things that matter to us, sense of belonging, our employees having the experience we need them to have to bring their best selves to work. So that's why I'm really excited about people first, and also the culture aspect, because I don't see, and I am the first in the Department of Homeland Security, don't see a lot in the government, because most of this is being done under your human resources shop, and my whole career has been in human resources and workforce performance. And it sort of ends up being the nice to do and not the must do. Because the must do, we have to hire, we have to pay people, we have to get their benefits. So the operations of HR tends to take the priority. And these other workforce strategy, culture, what are we doing to evaluate and listen to our employees and find out what they need and how things are going for them, tends to get a little bit on the nice to do side. This way, we're doing both. They're both really important. Taking care of the life cycle of employment and also the culture.
You brought up a few topics that we're going to delve a little more deeply into. But you did mention this is more than a nice poster on the wall.
Right.
It's more than something that is talked about more than just in yours and Director Easterly's offices. And this people first, you mentioned your managers. Is there I think we talked about before, some kind of formal process where you help your managers, in fact, reinforce this with their people?
We're on a journey here, I would say. I would say, so I already said hiring is the most important decision that the organization makes. The second most is who they put in as managers and leaders, because they have the biggest influence and drive culture. So, and I'm only 5 months in, so I haven't quite seen all how the systems work, but this is systems. So from the hiring and promotion to performance evaluation, what are we evaluating in our managers? Because you know what? People do what they're counted to do. Like they will be reinforced for certain behaviors, and if we're not reinforcing and measuring that, you know, they're going to do what they're going to do. So making sure that our evaluation stays true to the core principles of what we're about in our culture. So making sure we are actually measuring that, giving feedback. We have instituted, starting last year, a 360-degree feedback program for every supervisor, manager, and executive. Another thing that government doesn't do a lot of for development. But if people aren't getting that feedback from their subordinates, from their peers, from their customers, from their bosses, having conversations about how is this experience working? And the managers who have so much responsibility aren't hearing it, or maybe just hearing it from the people they want to, but not getting more holistic feedback. So building in the evaluation and feedback so people know where they stand. And then my Find CISA team, we got CISA, Go CISA from my learning office, many of whom are here, are really building those building blocks, making sure that as leaders are also going through their career, are getting certain training and knowledge as they need it. So they need to have the skills and knowledge, but how are they applying it? And I'm a big believer in the 70-20-10 model. You guys probably know this. 70% of learning is done through experience, through actually taking those experiences, 20% through coaching, mentoring, and feedback, and 10% informal training kinds of courses. So we've got to make sure that experiential piece is in our leadership development. So going on rotations, moving around in different assignments, taking a team and building it up, or taking a underperforming team and turning it around, and just moving and seeing different parts of the mission is so critical to the leadership. And that's where we can really see if we've got, you know, the management and the leadership that we need.
Excellent. So right in line with this year's conference theme of resetting expectations, creating accessible cybersecurity career pathways,
Yes.
you are a strong advocate of ensuring that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility are baked into CISA's People First culture.
Yes.
What are some, I know you've mentioned it, we're going to get a little farther into the details. What are some of the practical ways you're addressing this in, it's a mouthful, attracting, hiring, engaging, and retaining talent?
Yeah, this is so critical, and I love the theme. So much of this is happening in this conference and all around in our whole network of workforce development, which is bringing in diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and I add belonging, the B part of that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So first of all, we can't get our mission done without diversity of thought, experiences, and background. We can't, because we won't be as innovative and as creative as we need to be, especially in this work. So if we only hired people like us who had the same background, the same experience, the same pathway, then we're going to keep doing it one way. That is not how we tackle the mission of today and tomorrow. So we have to have the diversity, and science already proven this out. We have to have diversity of experience, background, and all of the demographics to create the capability we need to be innovative and thwart the risks that we're challenged with. So that's like the no-brainer, but that's diversity. That's the makeup. That's the quantifiable makeup of the group, say, the team or the organization. The inclusion part is so critical, because then you're asking, are their voices being heard? Are they bringing those ideas, that diverse perspective to the table, to our problems? So the inclusion is critical. And then I got to add the belonging, because if people don't feel safe to raise their voice, and in many cases it's counter to perhaps the majority or the way the status quo has gone, and so it's a little hard to sometimes be the one in the room that says, you know, I have a different idea, or I brought this other idea, I was working in this other company and we did it this way and this kind of worked. And like being able to raise that voice and have a sense of, you're welcome to bring that here, that belonging, like you want my ideas, you want me to bring my way, not just assimilate to the way. And so that's the journey, that's the entire foundation we need to create. The thing we're doing at CISA, I'm really excited, we just reimagined the Culture Council, which I'm leading, and I brought in and made sure our director of DEIA is my senior advisor and senior leadership of that. Rather than setting it aside and saying, oh, well, we're going to do a diversity council over here, we're going to do this as a separate, it's thread through everything we're doing in culture, everything about the employee experience. And we're also targeting, what do people need? We talk about belonging, we've got great employee association groups so that people who have certain emphasis areas or interest areas can get together and find that place for them to feel included. And then I'm tapping into those groups and saying, what else do we need to build into our programs? We are going to launch a neurodiverse employee assistance group. I don't know any other agency that's done that yet, but we need to do that to understand and then build that into, what do we need to train supervisors? What do they need to look for and create, so we're bringing out the best in our different populations? And we have the women, and we have the African American, and we have LGBTQ, and some of the ones that I think a lot of organizations, but I don't see that yet for the neurodiversity. We've got to do that. So we learn, and we also create that sense of belonging so they can connect to other people like themselves and immediately have a network and a cohort that is like them and that they can then use together. But then we as an organization benefits, because they'll tell us about what it was like to interview, what it was like to go through a training course, and then we can make it better.
Yeah, thank you. We just shared a muffin together in another room, and during that, talking about inclusion and belonging, we were talking about how the COVID era has actually made some of those opportunities for feeling a sense of belonging more difficult, because
Yeah.
so many of us are connecting to work remotely, and we don't have those opportunities to meet up in the hallway or what have you. And I think we're going to talk about a little later what the workforce at CISA looks like. But I understand that you have similar challenges at CISA because so much of your workforce is remote.
Yeah. I think this is, and I'm a big believer in future of work, because it is definitely, we learned a lot through the pandemic, and I think, again, we have to be continuous learners and see that we can do a lot of things differently, because technology is enabling us to do that. But for every positive, there can be an unintended consequence. So really studying, what are we losing without having the human-to-human interaction? Of course, I'm a psychologist, so I'm going to go there. Like, people matter. We are people. We are humans. We do need connection to each other. It absolutely helps us build trust faster. It helps us build that ability to talk to each other and, again, feel connected. So I think that's something we are looking at, is very much so, as we look at what bringing people back together, and I call it presence with purpose, not just you have to come in 3 times a week and then you're sitting on your computer still talking on Teams or Zoom calls all day. Yeah. That's not coming in for a purpose of connecting with each other, of having those, almost synergy of just talking to somebody, running into somebody, having an innovative brainstorming section with lots of different disciplines in the room. Things like that. That's what we're looking at, intentionally bringing people together so that we keep those connections. Because I really believe engagement is all about connecting people to each other and connecting people to the mission. If you can do those 2 things, you're going to have a highly engaged workforce.
Yeah, so exciting. Another aspect of inclusion and belonging that I thought was interesting in a prior conversation we had, which may surprise some people to hear, because often when we talk about government service, like your experience has been, like mine was when I was with the federal government, it's a lifelong commitment. And you have some interesting ideas on creating diversity by perhaps somebody spending a few years in the federal government and then they go out into private industry. Can you share some of those thoughts with us?
Another soapbox I have, and this is tied to hiring too, because I think that we are so busy thinking about an immediate need or a job that needs to be filled that our hiring managers, and they're results driven. They got to get the work done. We got to get the mission done. But if you're going to create, really back to my capacity building, you do have to think about the organization. You have to think about larger units than just my team or my particular work that needs to get done. So when you think about hiring, am I hiring talent, capability for the organization for now and the future? So this is the part where if I'm hiring somebody now for this need on this team, but I know that project's going to be maybe 1-2 years, and then we're going to be moved to something else, or technology will change, or AI is coming in. So I have to kind of go to the bigger picture. How do I bring them in but build capacity? And that's not hoarding my talent. I'm sorry, I have a lot of supervisors who, they get the great talent and they're hoarding it. It's got to be the paradigm of building that talent. And the way to build, I'm back to my 70%, is having people go out and have different experiences. The depth and the breadth. Depth of technical knowledge, absolutely, but breadth is so important. And by doing and having those experiences, you're building capability. So this, for me, is really critical. And I know the Department of Defense has this. We did this in the Intel agency. Joint duty, before you became a senior executive, you had to have, we called it an out-of-body experience. And it was legislated. So before you could get to be a senior intelligence officer, you had to see a different part of the mission. So in that case, it was CIA officers going to the NSA or going to the FBI or going to DHS and seeing a different part of the mission, because 9/11 Commission actually said that was the downfall. Why we didn't see the plot was each of those intel there's 16 agencies, 17 if you include OD&I, had a piece of the puzzle, but no one saw the whole picture of the pieces because they weren't connecting the information.
Hashtag silos.
Silos. Cylinders of excellence.
Oh. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Feel free to use that one.
Feel free to use that one. But seriously, so we had to start moving people around, and they were like, oh no, my beautiful agency, CIA, we're the best of the best. We know everything. As soon as they started going out to the other agencies, they said, I had no idea. I never knew they were doing this. I didn't know that we could do this, that, and the other. So again, opening up the aperture of thinking is about those experiences. So we need, very much at CISA, we're about partnerships. And it is all about creating the fabric of cybersecurity, infrastructure security across all of us, local, state, tribal, federal governments, the private sector, the academics, everybody has a role. So if we don't understand what others are doing, how can we possibly make this fabric work? We're going to have cylinders of excellence. So the way to do that is to have rotations and have our public servants out in private sector, have them have those experiences, bring it back to public sector, and vice versa. So that's really the next big leap, is to really get people to see the different parts of what we're doing, particularly in cybersecurity.
I think you've just articulated as well a really great use case of organizational diversity.
Yes.
Which is really, really
Absolutely.
awesome. So just in case anybody in the crowd might be looking for a career opportunity at CISA, I'd like to talk a little bit about attracting and hiring talent at CISA.
Yeah.
Can you explain the various employment tracks you have at CISA and perhaps give us an idea of the type of candidates who you're looking for to fill the roles in those positions?
Well, we are in a growth spurt, so we do have a lot of opportunities. So we would love to get some more talent coming into CISA. We're about 3,000 federal civil servants, and we hired just over 500 last year, and we're on track to hire about 600 this year. That will start leveling off in the next couple of years, but we are growing right now. So we have a lot of opportunities of different levels, and I know our director really wants to bring more early careers, because we're only 4 years young as an agency, as CISA. So we are still very much forming and storming and creating our workforce and capability. But I think that really, again, here we go. It's complicated. I haven't counted at CISA, but there's probably about 25 different hiring authorities that we use. Everything from internships to bringing fellows in, and there's White House fellows, and there's president management fellows, and there's a lot of different fellows you can come in, to coming in as a permanent civil servant, which is certainly the competitive process, and going to USA Jobs and seeing those jobs. But we also have hiring highly qualified experts who will come in from the private sector or from another sector just for a project, for a special initiative for maybe a couple years. So that's kind of more of I call it the gig economy. Like, we bring them in for a project, but not for a permanent, longer term stint. So I think we need to lean into more we call them term employment, because once we get a little more stable, as CISA is in this growth spurt, we are going to not have all of our work permanent in the federal, in the public sense, in the civil servant sense. We're going to need project-based. We're going to need people to come in with certain skills for certain durations and then go do great things in the private sector or somewhere else. And so that's part of how do we create the right flow and mix of talent. But we do have a lot of different hiring authorities. USAjobs.gov, of course, is where we compete our federal jobs. And then I wanted to mention that because we're part of Department of Homeland Security, we have a special authority and a program called Cyber Talent Management System, CTMS. And this has allowed the department to compete. The salaries are based more in labor market, so we are able to compete more with the private sector on salaries. Not quite up there, but better than the general schedule. And it's you take an assessment and you qualify in, and then you're qualified for any number. I think there's like 16 specialties in the cyber. So that is a great tool. The website is dhscs.usajobs.gov. So you can go in there and see what opportunities are in that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks to one of you who put a question into the Whova app ahead of time, asking about clearances. I think that's a common question for
Yes.
folks going to work at CISA.
Yes.
What advice do you have? Does somebody need a clearance before they can apply? Can they apply without a clearance? How do those things work?
Yes, and it's not just CISA. I mean, we really do have a lot of jobs that require clearances. So starting at the sort of basic, if you're going to get a job in the federal government, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So that is one of those things, and I know we have a lot of international students and wonderful talent in this country that we can't tap as a federal government at this time. There are a few very special authorities, but for the most part we can't. So you have to be a U.S. citizen, and then you have to pass, depending on the level the job requires, anywhere from a general background investigation, so credit criminal check kind of thing, to a security clearance. And there are different levels of that, secret, top secret, and so forth. So depending on what the job, and it's documented in the vacancy what is needed, you might have to go through different types of screening. You don't have to have a clearance to get a job at CISA. There are many jobs that you will get a clearance as part of the application process, which is why it takes so long to get talent in. That is a very long process. It is very thorough. But if you do have a clearance, either from being a contractor or from being in another work role where you had clearance in another agency, we do have reciprocity. So our security clearance folks will take that, update it where it needs to be updated, and that can speed things along. But it is certainly not you have to have the bar. You do have to pass a drug test, and you do have to agree not to use drugs as a federal employee, and that is something that is important for what we want our workforce to know. When you take a job of public trust, you do have a higher bar in some cases of clearances and drug tolerance and so forth.
Yeah, especially here in the Northwest. Some state laws aren't the same as the federal laws.
We have a lot of questions about that. Yeah. Well, what about the states? Legal marijuana is legal. You got to look at you got to look at you're employed for the federal government.
Rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't do it.
We alluded to this a little bit earlier, and as you know, I had the privilege of being an FBI agent for 24 years.
Yeah.
And during my time with the FBI, the retention rate for FBI agents was over 90%.
Yeah.
Shocking in today's economy to have people 90% or more who start a job and stay all the way to retirement. Mm-hmm. The only exception to that, repeatedly, were those agents who were working cybersecurity or cyber-related investigations. Why? Because the lure of a whole lot of money in the private sector was just too much to pass up. And the training and the experience, of course, qualified them for those jobs. Do you have this issue at CISA? And if so, how do you work with that in being able to retain really great talent?
Yes, that's a big question. I don't think we can do the one-size-fits-all. Different people are motivated by different things, and people need different services at different stages in their career and their life. So I don't like to say everybody wants more money, so their private sector is going to get all the talent. I don't think that's true. We don't find that to be true. But when it's important and you need to get the financial security, then that's going to be more, I think, beneficial to certain people at certain stages. So what we need to do is create employee value proposition, every organization. What do we offer? And then promote the heck out of it so that when they come to CISA, they know they're going to get to do great work, make a difference for the policy of this country and the partnerships of the cybersecurity fabric, and really driven by purpose and the mission and being part of making this work for the country, national security. And really, I'm a big believer that public service is a choice, it's a calling, and once you take that oath of office, you know that you're in something bigger than yourself. And so you want to find people who are driven by that. And we have a lot of people, and especially I think a lot in the up and coming generations who want to figure out how do they bring their skills to the important things in our country and our world. So if we can make that the value proposition, pay them enough and pay them well. And like I said, the CTMS, we are getting close to labor market with the private sector on that. So we're getting the tools we need to compete. But I don't take away anybody from going and taking a job if they need. They've got family and they've got whatever needs. Then financial is important. And look, until we got the Parental Leave Act, which I was very proud of getting in the federal government because I was part of that when I was at the White House. But until we could even offer parental leave, we lost a lot of people from the government because they were going to have a family and they needed to have parental leave, and the private sector was offering that. Yeah. So there's a lot of different values people are looking for, and what I want to do is create those values in the government, in our agency, so that we're not losing talent, but we can retain it and keep it. But I also, again, think it's a good thing. Go out and get some other experience. I want a porous border so you can come back. So once and people's life needs change. Once the financial is taken care of and that's not something that is a priority, come back in. come back in. We have a lot of people retiring who want to come and give back to their government.
Yeah.
There should be an easy entry for people to come back in and give their talent to our incredible missions, right? And so it's like all different levels and different points in people's career of what they're, motivated and need to do, need in their benefits and support.
Yeah, I think that's so exciting. We alluded to it before, but I want to confirm, CISA's workforce is not all located in a building just outside the Beltway in DC. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're all over the country and the world.
So remote work is a real possibility, which often,
Yes.
again, with government jobs, when we think, oh, it's a government job, I'm gonna wear this white shirt and a tie, and I have to ride the metro and carry my lunch pail. It's not the case
Have you seen our
anymore.
director, Easterly?
Yes, I have.
She doesn't wear a conservative navy blue suit everywhere.
More
which I
Palo
love.
Alto than Washington, D.C., I think.
Yeah, she's breaking
Yeah.
she's breaking the role model, or
That's-
the model in many ways, which is
That's
exciting.
wonderful. And I think you've touched on it many times, but again, part of that retention, and I think I want to kind of tie it back to the people-first culture that you're creating, that culture of inclusion and belonging may actually help people retain at CISA as well.
Absolutely. So this back to the value proposition. We as an agency have leaned into the whole remote work and flexible work and telework, and that's wonderful, and that's work because honestly, our work is all over. Our partnerships are out in the local and state and international. So we don't need people sitting in Washington to do that. We need them all over. To build those relationships and partnerships, and then of course we do site inspections and we do vulnerability assessments all over physically in the physical infrastructure. So the work is out there. Then you go to the work, the knowledge work that can be done, via computer. Then absolutely we should have flexibility of where our workforce is because we know that's going to help people meet other needs that they have in their. I don't know that there's ever work-life balance. I'm a mother of twins, actually, so I don't know if balance is the word, but I like blending, work-life blending, because at any given time you've got to focus on one priority and focus on that. So, and I think we really do embrace that. People have families and people have other interests outside of work and things that they're doing, and so how to best meet them so that they don't have to give up and sacrifice something to come and work in our agency, and a lot of that is being able to live where their family or their community is and do some things there, or something that their spouse or partner is able to do, and being able to retain that talent and not lose it because that family has to move to another location. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So we got to work that out. And sometimes that means changing the role. Like some of our roles, you have to work in a SCIF. That's a secure environment. That's not something everybody has in their house.
What if my basement is surrounded by concrete?
No, it doesn't work that way. Not yet. Maybe in the future.
Okay. Lead.
But I think that we can be more flexible in our roles and the work that we have to do. That's another big soapbox I get on. I think jobs are a bit of a construct of the past, and work assignments and roles and putting our different skills to different aspects of our mission. So maybe this work role is needed here in a DC office, but we still have all sorts of other work that can be done from any state in the country. We can move our talented people to those other work roles, and we should be able to again, retain them as part of our CISA, enablement. And that's where I think we have to think differently about moving people around and giving them those other opportunities to keep them in, but also to move them around so they're growing at their own capability.
Yeah. You're leading me right into the next question, which is when we think of an agency like CISA, I think we conjure up these images of all of the Hollywood movies of this room with hundreds of monitors and satellites and tracking systems of telling us what's happening on the internet. Probably an impossible question that I'm about to ask you, but what does a day in the life of a CISA employee look like?
Yeah, that is impossible because there are people who are looking at monitors and in really cool control rooms and so forth. But it's as diverse as our people and our work is. So you can ask any employee and they're going to tell you their day in the life is different based on what they're tackling. I will say the work is never dull because I don't know anybody who has gone into their work for the day, and it's gone exactly as they thought it was going to. If you want repeatable, stable, predictable work, don't come and work at CISA. If you want to be part of big problem solving and thinking differently and going, wow, I didn't even think about that, and being more flexible, come and work at CISA and most of these other mission areas that we're talking about. So I would say that unpredictable and being flexible and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to go, but I'm going to get to use my thoughts and my ideas and my skills. But I will say, everybody, every day that I've been at CISA talks about partnerships and collaboration. So there is something consistent. It's who else needs this information? Who else can I work with? What did I learn from this group? Who else should be connected to this initiative or this program, this training program or a skills program? Who else and where do I connect this within CISA and beyond and into our partnerships? Everybody talks about partnerships and collaboration. That is a foundation to our work every day. So that's the part I'd say, a day in the life. Sometime you're going to be thinking about who else am I working with or who can I get to work on this.
I think 3 C's. Here's your next poster. Collaboration, curiosity, and there was a third one, and now
Commitment.
I lost it. Sure, let's do it.
Courage. Just takes courage.
Creativity, that was the one.
Oh, creativity. Yes.
Curiosity, and
we
collaboration.
got a lot of the C's. Yeah.
Big
On that,
poet.
you know, when you talk about curiosity, I want to throw in as I'm on a personal mission to move the word soft skills to power skills, because they aren't soft. And I've been talking about this for 2 days since the workshops. They're not soft, and that demeans the importance of these. So curiosity, being able to work collaboratively, being a team member, and thinking about and being interested in what other people's ideas are, and bringing out that inclusion and sense of we're in a team, we've got to figure this out. That is really important. And all of you that are teaching the next generation, those technical skills are important and are critical, but the power skills are what makes the difference. Those things are what's going to get us to thwart the risk that we have in this domain. That's the really important thing. And that's what we're looking for in our talent, and I think in the federal government, and of course across the whole industry.
Great. I don't know if you saw, I had an opportunity to do some videos with our scholarship recipients.
I love them, yes.
We did 10 quick questions.
Oh no.
We're not going to do that with
Dark
you, Elizabeth.
chocolate.
There you go.
Hidden Figures movie.
But I do have one that sounds like a 10 quick questions.
Okay.
The category is reactive or proactive.
Yes.
Where's CISA's focus?
Both. Can I have both?
Please.
Okay, reactive government, very much set up. When something bad happens, an incident happens, we react. We've got to secure things, create safety, and thwart what's going on. So the critical incident response is absolutely a reactive. But the proactive part is thinking about how do we create preparedness and readiness. So by doing scenarios and exercises and the what ifs, what if this happens, what if that, and really thinking like really out of the box of, we don't even know what the next threat, we don't even know what things are going to be like in the future. So creating the space to be proactive and thinking differently about things is absolutely bringing that creativity and innovation to our mission. So we have to be proactive in that, and very much in our partnerships and reaching out. Who else should be at this? Who else needs this information? Thinking about it proactively and not just reactive, because we're not going to get everything. We know that. But we can get more if we're thinking differently and being proactive. So we absolutely ensure that our workforce is ready, and absolutely the emergency communications, that they have the web and they have the infrastructure to react when things happen. But the proactive is, what else are we missing? What else are we going to need to do? And have those really great planned exercises and part of our day thinking about that.
We've made it almost all the way through our time. I think you mentioned it once, and we've otherwise avoided the topic.
Uh-oh.
But now I have to ask, especially since you combine an industrial and organizational psychology with a computer science background.
I did.
Elizabeth, you were made for CISA, I have to say. AI, is it going to replace human jobs?
Well, my computer science consisted of basic Fortran, Pascal, and assembler language. Anybody else? Okay, so, oh, yay!
There you go.
So don't think I could do it now, but it was a good foundation. But I did write a paper in 1983 about artificial intelligence. And that's what got me interested in industrial psychology, because it was like, this is the future. People are going to be using technology, and the data is going to be so fast and so capable. So how is that going to impact work and people in their jobs? So it's perfect. It is a little bit like I was made to bring this all together. I'm glad that I thought about that back in the 80s, because that was very new. But you could tell this was where it was going. Yeah. So yeah, I think artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, all of these capabilities are going to free up humans to do what humans do best, and what we need to put our critical thinking skills, our collaboration, our thinking differently about the innovation and what ideas and where do we go next with this, and exploration. I came from NASA, so exploration and discovery is where we free up the humans to really go beyond. So I think, and history has proven that technology, artificial intelligence, has actually, yes, it's replaced some repeatable manual jobs that people were kind of rote, like assembly lines. I mean, that was where, in the industrial era, we had just had people screwing in widgets all day long, doing the same thing. If that can be done by a robot, which it is now, and they built the cars by robots, it frees up the people to do other things, to create, design, think about, autonomous vehicles, flying vehicles, all sorts of things, right? So that's really what the promise is of the future. We have to embrace it. We have to think about how it's going to influence, work and assignments and jobs and projects. But we have to embrace it and not, be afraid of it, because I don't think it's. I don't think that it's. I think it's going to create more jobs ultimately, but this is where our whole skilling. But we got to keep people along their own building those skills so that they are not out of work, but that they are viable and thriving in the new world of work.
Yeah, I think I've heard it said something along the lines of, it may replace certain jobs, but it will create other jobs for people who know how to work with the technology.
Yes, that's right.
So a really great point of make sure we're keeping up with it.
Yeah, that's great.
I think our time is up, Elizabeth. This has been such a treat for us, by the way.
Thank you.
And for People First, with such a busy schedule that you have, so many demands, thank you for putting these people first today with your time.
It's a privilege.
Elizabeth Kolmstetter, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.